All right, so 7 jurors have now been selected in Donald Trump's criminal trial, but some who did not make the cut are also now talking to NewsNation. Why they got dismissed from the case and what they told us outside the courtroom. Plus, you are looking live right now at Capitol Hill, where impeachment articles against the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas quite literally were walked over to the Senate. And just before that happened, Mayorkas made a claim about the southern border that might even give Democrats a little pause. Come on in, I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. All right. Hello. Here we are hanging out with us today. Michael Starr Hopkins is a Democratic strategist. Nan Hayworth, former Republican Congresswoman from the state of New York. Jeff Maurer is the former senior writer on Last Night Tonight with John Oliver. And Denise Gitsom, former aide to George W. Bush and NewsNation contributor. Mick Mulvaney, hello, sir. Former Trump White House Chief of Staff, NewsNation contributor, hanging out with us as well. Mick in Charlotte today. All right. We're going to start the show on what's going on up on Capitol Hill with Alejandro Mayorkas. But would you look at what the New York Times is reporting now? Show the headline here. The Times reporting within the last handful of minutes or so. Senator Menendez, charged in bribery scheme, may blame his wife. Here's what the Times is reporting. They say, quote, according to newly unsealed sentences, Mr. Menendez may testify at his trial, and if he does, he would disclose communications with Ms. Menendez that would tend to exonerate him, but may incriminate his wife. Denise?
Yeah, well, this sure sounds like he's taken a page out of Duncan Hunter Jr.'s playbook, the former congressman from San Diego. Listen, with Duncan's case, it was $250,000. And in this case, it sounds like a whole lot more.
Cash, gold bars, cars, allies in New Jersey, the government of Egypt.
So it's actually, it's much worse, but it's the same playbook. And it ended up in a destroyed marriage. Really sad because Duncan has a bunch of kids. And a destroyed career. And I don't understand what sort of narcissism it takes to really feel like you're so important that you would throw your wife under the bus for something you were clearly complicit in.
To be clear, this is the reporting of the New York Times. They're reporting at this point. They say they've looked at documents and they couch this with may, Nan. But if this is even remotely true.
Well, there is no honor among thieves. So I'm going to imagine that if Mrs. Menendez was involved in something unsavory, that it was, you'd have to imagine that her husband had some knowledge of it because he was benefiting from it tremendously, presumably. So we'll wait and see what happens. But he doesn't cloak himself in glory.
Want to get one of the Democrats in here?
I don't know what options he had other than to blame his wife, claim those weren't gold bars, they were chocolate, unwrap them, or to say this is all a simulation, none of this is real. So he's going the blame his wife route, perhaps, allegedly, maybe.
We'll see what happens here. All right. And we'll see what happens in that case. But this was the scene from earlier today here in Washington. For the first time since the Civil War, impeachment articles were delivered to the Senate against a sitting cabinet member, in this case, the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He just so happened also to be testifying today up on the Hill before the Homeland Security Committee and had this exchange with the Republican congressman from the state of Texas, August Pfluger. Watch.
Secretary, is the border secure?
Congressman, as I have articulated earlier in this hearing,
just a yes or no is fine. Is the border secure, Mr. Secretary, today?
With the authorities and the funding that we have, it is as secure as it can be.
Wow.
We'll get to that in a second, but first to New York City Hall there, and a scene that happened with hundreds, if not give or take 1,000 or so migrants, we are told, from Africa. Michael, they were there at City Hall today. You see the scene there. Looking for help, better services, shelter. What happened in New York today?
Well, look, I think if Republicans in the House are so concerned with immigration and securing the border, then they need to, while they're in the Senate, talk to Senator Langford and maybe put that bill up. Republicans have the majority in the House. There is a Republican bill in the Senate that Democrats will bipartisanly support. It is a bill that we don't even like, but we're willing to support.
Wow.
So this is political theater.
This is
purely political
theater.
You're a former congresswoman from that area. You know that area well. You see that. What's going on?
Absolutely. Well, this is, think how bad it would be if the border weren't perfectly secure. My goodness. No, New York has declared itself a sanctuary city. Probably the majority, almost everybody outside of New York City disagrees with this policy, but all New Yorkers pay the price for this in many different ways, including through the expenses of government. So the problem with the bill that failed in the House is that most of the funding did not actually go to securing the border, Michael, and that was a failure. So, this is something that needs fixing. But right now, Sanctuary City is not where New York should be, but this is where we are.
All right. I mentioned Mayorkas. Come on in, Congresswoman Laurel Lee. She is a congresswoman from the state of Florida. She is also one of the impeachment managers in the House of Representatives. All right, Congresswoman, thanks for being back here with us on the Hill. Appreciate it. Should be a big day for you there tomorrow as it gets underway in the Senate, the potential trial of Alejandro Mayorkas. Why are you pursuing this, Congresswoman?
Well, as we've already touched on here, the failure at the border is absolutely catastrophic. So there are a number of things that go far beyond simple policy differences. The numbers are staggering, but also that Secretary Mayorkas has absolutely defied other branches of government. He's subverted the laws of the United States. He's not following our laws, deliberately implemented policies that resulted in this crisis, and has defied
Has he committed crimes?
So there are a couple of things there are a few things that have happened. I would say he has refused willfully and deliberately to follow the laws of the United States, which is his job, not to write them, but to execute them. And moreover, has defied the lawful authority of other branches of government. So the House did our job very painstakingly, conducting hearings, evidence, and testimony, and took that to the Senate. And now is the time for us to be able to present the facts and evidence. I would also note the House did, in fact, pass a border bill, which we sent to the Senate. They have enacted. The same is not true for the Senate. There was not a bill related to immigration that passed the Senate and came to the House. There hasn't been one. And it was correctly noted, I think you had to read 100 pages into that bill before you even got to substantive real border provisions. So all of these reasons are why. Yes, go ahead, Blake.
No. I was just sorry. I don't mean to jump in, but you know the order of how all of this has gone, Congresswoman. But for those watching us here on NewsNation or listening to us on Sirius XM, as you know, the very first time the House tried to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, it failed. And then the second time you went at it, it went straight down party lines. And now there is somewhere between possibility to the likelihood that the Senate isn't even going to take this up, that they're just going to end it. And, you were a former prosecutor, serious job, came to Congress. And I wonder if this is all just one major waste of time.
It is not. So the House of Representatives has a responsibility to do exactly what it did, which was to conduct a thorough investigation, develop the evidence, analyze the law, and reach the conclusion that we did. So presenting those articles of impeachment to the Senate, now it becomes their job to actually hear the facts and evidence and then make a determination. So we've done our part. We're looking to the Senate now to do theirs, and it's their constitutional responsibility to do it. So I absolutely believe that this was an important thing for the House to do. It's important for us to make sure that the American people are getting the information and getting the facts about everything that's happening down at our southern border, what part of this is preventable, and how it could be fixed. So that's what we've been working really hard to do.
Congresswoman Laurel Lee, I think we'll see you in the Senate chamber tomorrow, most likely, right? Thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate the time, as always. Talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure.
You got it. Hey, Mick Mulvaney, come on in. I wonder what you heard there from the Congresswoman and sort of what you make of the playbook here, or the thinking and the strategy from those in your party.
Yeah, I've always been a little skeptical of this. I remember going back to the 2010, 11, 12, and people wanted us to impeach Barack Obama, and we kept asking, what's the high crime and misdemeanor? I still don't see that here. I was expecting, as they went through this process, to see a new piece of evidence that maybe said, that showed that he instructed people not to enforce the law. That would have been really bad. I didn't see that. So I don't feel really good about this one. That being said, the House has voted to impeach somebody, and the Senate has the obligation to take it up. If they don't, you can imagine the precedent that it sets. We have a future Republican president. He's impeached by a Democrat House, and a Republican Senate just refuses to take it up. They'd be wailing and gnashing of teeth of a biblical proportion. So I get all the political theater. I get that. I understand it. But the House has voted, and the Senate has the obligation to take this up, or else it's a really, really bad precedent for the future.
All right, Nick, stand by there. A NewsNation exclusive now along the southern border. A 23-year-old National Guardsman who is accused of attempting to smuggle migrants into the country tells our Ali Bradley that he was lured into doing so by the promise of money.
He's telling me that he made like a quick, $4 or $5 grand in a weekend on a day, on a Saturday. And then I was like, I don't even, I make that in a month, but you made that in a day. I could use that.
Says he could make $4 or $5 grand on a weekend per day as a National Guardsman doing that.
I'm what?
You're like Jaws.
Yeah, I can't believe when public servants say these things. I mean, we don't go into these jobs for that reason. And so, anyway.
Let me just say,
here's don't mess with Texas or its sheriffs is really like the bottom line, right?
He should be prosecuted to the fullest extent
100%.
of the law. That is not a Democrat thing. That is not a Republican
it's a right
thing.
Or wrong
that
thing.
is a national security
100%.
thing. We should hold him accountable. And this is further proof why there has to be some common ground on immigration and border security.
I say she's the best in the business down on the southern border. Ali Bradley, come on in. You spoke with him. Hello, Ali. Nice to see you. You spoke with him. What was your takeaway?
Hey. Yeah, it was really hard, because he was telling me this was his first time in handcuffs. But at the end of the day, this young man took an oath to protect and serve America, not literally turn his back on it, which is what he did when he was trying to move these 2 illegal immigrants from Mexico into the interior. And he got busted at this pop-up tactical checkpoint. It's so interesting because he calls the smuggler who was organizing all this, and he's like, oh, no, you sent me down a bad road because, Blake, they're supposed to get these clean routes, right? You're getting $5 grand cash. It's going to be easy. You're not going to run into any
He was mad at the smuggler?
He runs into this problem. He calls the smuggler and he's like, you sent me down a bad road pretty much. And the smuggler goes, oh, no, my bad. Didn't know that was there. But, this kid was willing to talk because he wants to prevent other young people from getting involved with the cartel, from getting involved with this quick cash scheme that so many are. So he was open to talking about it. But another thing that was wild, he was told by these smugglers, Blake, that they were going to be moving women and kids. So it kind of made it easier for him, made it better. But he brought snacks and water because he didn't know who or what he was moving. So he thought, maybe this will smooth it over so they don't kill me. He thought he might be picking up a bunch of men that might be armed and might hurt him or whatever, and he still went and did it.
You asked him this question. You basically asked him, why did you want to serve? Here's what he said.
You want to look cool. You want to wear the wear the uniform. Because of my grandma.
Because of your grandma?
Yeah. Well, my father was born in Vietnam during the war, so they came back over here. But she always told me growing up that, join.
I'm going to give
Ali,
I'm going to give you the last.
His mom.
Oh no, go on, go finish.
Okay.
Go for it.
So he was telling me that his mom wasn't doing well, that she wasn't working, her health was kind of failing, so he was trying to do this to make a quick buck, which is what we're hearing from all of these individuals that are getting involved here. But I mean, again, when you sit there and you talk to them and they've committed this crime, but he's like a normal kid, just like your neighbor or something else, it's frustrating. It was frustrating to sit there with this kid who's crying because he got busted for human smuggling, Blake.
Allie Bradley, live for us once again on the southern border. Allie, great reporting and great job as always. Thank you. All right, Allie Bradley for us. Thank you. You heard what there?
Well, I heard a young man who felt desperate, and I agree completely with Michael that this border situation, and it has to do very much with the Biden administration. It was not the same under President Trump, but it does have to do with Democrats and Republicans in legislature coming together. You are absolutely right, Michael, and for Americans who elect their representatives to put real value on this. This will be repeated, this kind of situation, because of what's happening at the border now.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's sad. He's not wrong. The uniform is very cool. It's a cool uniform, especially the dress greens, very cool. I'm not sure he represented it very well.
You expect smugglers to behave with more integrity, so
you know,
that as
he
well.
prefaces family. One thing my family always told me is don't get involved with the drug cartel. It doesn't go well.
Yeah, it's not a good look, right?
He's a kid.
No, but here's the thing. When are we going to start having a culture that fosters personal responsibility again? I don't care what Republicans do or don't do. It's time to stop pointing fingers at everybody else and say, I made a bad decision because I was an idiot in this situation. And that's enough.
Hey, Mulvaney, I got to
own it.
I got to run, but last word to you here.
I think Michael's right. They got to prosecute this guy to the full extent of the law. You just do. You can't allow this. And the Biden administration, I think, will absolutely pursue that, and they should.
Okay. All right. Coming up here from the Hill on NewsNation. Remember all those interest rate cuts that we were told that we were going to get this year, maybe 5 of them? Well, a warning today from the Fed chair on why we might not get any at all. Plus, dismissed jurors in Donald Trump's criminal case are now talking to NewsNation. What they are telling us and why they didn't make the cut. And on the other side of the break, is Mike Johnson about to lose his job as the Speaker of the House? There is now a new call for Johnson to resign. We are speaking with one of the most influential conservatives on the other side of the break on where he stands. You're watching us here on the Hill on NewsNation. We're back in a few. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Live look right now at Capitol Hill, where tonight the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, is defiant as pressure against him increases.
I am not resigning, and it is, in my view, an absurd notion that someone would bring a vacate motion. We are simply here trying to do our jobs. It is not helpful to the cause. It is not helpful to the country.
He's talking about resigning there because a second Republican congressman, this time Thomas Massie, has called for the Speaker to resign and is supporting the measure to oust him. Now, after Johnson announced separate aid bills for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Joining us now is the head of the House Freedom Caucus, the congressman from the state of Virginia, Bob Good. Congressman Good, thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. Appreciate your time as always, sir. Thomas Massie calling for the House Speaker to resign, member of his own party. Is Massie right?
Well, I've only heard 2 members speaking to that effect, and you know who the 2 of those are. I'm focused on trying to get the best outcome this week. I had a productive meeting, I hope, with the Speaker today. I hope that he will pass an Israel bill paid for, put pressure on the Senate with what took place over the weekend. Israel is one of our most important allies on the world stage, almost universally supported by Republicans. Most of Americans want to support Israel. They saw what happened over the weekend. They think it's important. You know, we passed Israeli aid back in November, paid for. We need to do it again, send it over to the Senate, jam the Senate, if you will, make them choose whether or not to support Israel or not, and stand with the American people and stand with our number 1 important ally. Secondly, we need to repackage a Ukraine deal that is skinny, if you will, lethal, maybe $20 billion paid for, not borrowed from our kids and our grandkids, and is connected to border security. We can't let the American people down. When the Speaker failed to utilize the spending battle to leverage for border security, he promised we would use the supplemental, the Ukraine package to do that. We need to not let the American people down and do that. I'm focused on trying to accomplish that this week. I hope that we'll do that.
I hear you. And as we know, there are these individual bills. Do you have a red line for the House Speaker, Congressman, that if something does happen or doesn't happen, that's it for you?
Well, I never said that a year ago with the previous speaker, and I don't say that now. I'm not cavalier about it. I'm not threatening about it. I'm not flippant about it. I'm not, trying to discuss that openly in public. I didn't before, but obviously I had reached a line when someone else filed the motion to vacate. I had no reason to defend the current speaker, or the previous speaker, I should say. And so I'm not initiating a motion to vacate. I think we ought to do the best we can for the American people between now and November. And then after November, we'll have a contest for leadership in the new Congress.
So you mentioned Ukraine. There is the possibility, and we're starting to hear it from Democrats, sir, that say if Mike Johnson's job is threatened based on a Ukraine package, that Democrats would jump in to help him if there is a motion to vacate, which is the mechanism to have a vote on his job. For example, here's what Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat from Florida, said. He said, "My position hasn't changed. Massey wants the world to burn. I won't stand by and watch. I have a bucket of water." If Democrats come to his side, come to Mike Johnson's side, do you take issue with that?
Number one, I don't believe Democrats will do that. I think that they're bluffing in the sense that they like what Speaker Johnson has done. We only take a few consequential votes every year because the Democrats control the Senate and the White House. So anything that they don't have to take up, they won't take up. Anything they don't have to pass, they won't pass. So every leverage opportunity with the NDAA, FISA reform, the spending bills, we have surrendered to the Democrats in the Senate. So they, of course, liked what the Speaker has done. So I think they'd like him to remain as Speaker as long as we have a Republican Speaker. But I do not believe they will do it. I think they're bluffing because I think they would rather see the Republican Party in some kind of a disarray. So I don't believe Democrats will do it. But let's just say they did do it. I don't think that is sustainable for the Speaker. We have told him that. We don't think that's a path forward for him. We don't think it's good for him or the Republican Party. So we don't recommend that he succeeds based on Democrat votes. We want him to do what Republicans want to do so that we can all unite behind him and support him.
Congressman Good, we'll leave it there. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Mick Mulvaney. So you heard Bob Good say there that he thinks Democrats are bluffing on that possibility. I wonder what you're hearing.
A couple different things. Moskowitz is right about one thing but wrong on the other. Massey is not upset about the Ukraine stuff. Massey's upset about the FISA bill and the amendment that had been offered to require the government to get a warrant to search, to follow American citizens. That's what's really upsetting him. So that's a new element here. It used to be folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene who just wanted to get rid of the Speaker because she wants the media attention. If the vote comes, I think Bob Good is probably right in that the Democrats are bluffing about bailing out a Speaker. But if they are not, things are so poisonous. The folks I talked to inside the building, Blake, are telling me that it's so poisonous that if the Democrats were to come to Mike Johnson's aid, it wouldn't upset that many Republicans. It might upset Bob Good, and I get that. But I think a lot of folks are just throwing their hands up and saying, you know what, can we not do this right now?
Okay. As you were saying that you think Democrats are bluffing, the former Republican Congresswoman agreed with you, by the way.
Yes.
And as Mick, as you were talking about your latter part about Democrats coming to his attention, to his Denise, and then we're agreeing with you as well. Yeah. So I think you've got... You hit the right note there with the two other Republicans.
I know I'm doing something right when Michael's agreeing with me. When Michael's agreeing with me, then I know I'm doing something.
Shot on that one.
There you go. We'll leave it there. We still have half the show to go to see if he'll disagree with you. All right. Still to come here on The Hill, Hot Mike with Mick.
There you go.
Yes, Mulvaney breaks down what he's watching at the start of the Trump trial and what he heard out of President Biden earlier today. Plus, she is the governor of Arkansas and faced criticism for buying a $19,000 lectern for the state house. So how is Sarah Huckabee Sanders pushing back now? We'll show you. You're going to want to see this one. On the other side of the break, you're watching The Hill. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. So it's day 2, and 7 jurors have now been chosen for former President Trump's hush money trial. More prospective jurors dismissed today as well, as they say, in some cases, they can't be fair, including 2 who spoke with NewsNation after they walked out of the courthouse. Now, the woman you're about to hear from cited a scheduling conflict due to her cybersecurity job, for example. The other potential juror is from Texas and cited an unconscious bias. Listen.
Regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, the right to a fair trial is really important. And if I believe in that, I need to do my best to let everyone know that.
Being who I am, even though I think I could be impartial, I think there is definitely some unconscious bias. All my friends growing up were Republican. I went to a Republican university that's slant Republican. So it just didn't feel fair to be in a jury like this, in a case like this, and be fair.
So they're not on the jury. What'd you hear there, Denise?
I got to take some notes. Those are great excuses for getting out of jury duty. But it's like this delicate balance, because you feel like it's your patriotic duty to go and be a part of like this civic, this is the civic duty. And if good people aren't being honest about it, then we have a problem. So I'm grateful for their honesty. But again, send me some notes.
All right, Jeff, what'd you hear?
I heard it's a lovely day here in New York, and yippee, I don't have to sit around listening about Donald Trump.
I think it's probably somewhere around there. What'd you hear, Nan?
I hear two people who sounded pretty honest to me, and wanted to be fair.
I mean, good on them for saying.
Yes, I love them for that.
What'd you hear there?
I was actually a public defender in that very courthouse.
Really?
And I heard people who are actually going to take this seriously. When people go in for jury duty, they take that stuff seriously.
That's your read on that.
It is.
Okay, interesting. All right, cool. Meantime, Donald Trump spoke to reporters before leaving court for the day. Here was the former president just a little while ago.
We are going to continue our fight against this judge. We think we have a very conflicted, highly conflicted judge who shouldn't be on the case, and he's rushing this trial.
Time now for Hot Mic with Mick. Hello, Mick. I haven't talked to you since, I guess it started yesterday, so I'm batting 500, I guess, since the start of the trial. Now that it's here, just wonder what your thoughts are as this is officially underway.
Well, my first thought is, where did that kid go to college at a Republican university? I didn't think that existed, so I want to figure out what that's all about. But look, Trump, he's torn. He hates doing this. He really does. He believes that any press is good press, and I get that, but he knows this is going to be a long slog, and he's going to have to sit there day in and day out, and he hates that. But he knows this is good for him politically. There's been some polling data out in the last 48 hours that says that, a large majority of Americans can't understand what he might have done that is a crime. Keep in mind, paying hush money is not a crime. That's not what he's charged with here. Right. This is a bookkeeping charge. This is by far the weakest of the four charges against him, and he will be able to make political hay about it. He hates it. I get that. You can see it in his face. But at the end of the day, he's going to turn this into a positive politically.
You actually can see it in his face that he's uncomfortable or doesn't like it?
He's bored.
Him the way you do.
And, there's been reports about him falling asleep and all that kind of stuff. Look, and Michael and I have sat in courtrooms, for 12, 14 hours a day. It can get pretty boring after a while. And that's not what Donald Trump does, is, sitting still for 12 hours.
Okay. All right. Meantime, in Scranton, Pennsylvania today, President Biden hammered Trump, accusing him of running on trickle-down tax policies. He also touted his administration's job creation record compared to his predecessor.
In all American history, that left office with fewer jobs than when they entered office. Herbert Hoover. And yes, Donald Herbert Hoover Trump.
Not bad, I guess. Mick, as Biden's out on the trail hammering tax policy.
I get it, and he's going to get the Herbert Hoover crowd, so that's probably, I guess, him. He's the only person around who actually voted for Hoover. So I'm not sure that's a very effective... monologue. But look, here's the bottom line. This is demagoguery. This is what you hear from the Democrats all of the time. Make the rich pay their fair share, etc. You'd like to have a reasonable debate with them and say, oh, Mr. President, the top 1% of the country pay 50% of the income taxes. How much more do you want them to pay? When you say they want you to pay the fair share, what's the number? You're never going to hear that because this is not a serious policy discussion. This is him trying to rile up his base, which you don't blame him for. This is going to be a base turnout election.
You wrote for John Oliver. Was that a good one? Was that a funny that he delivered?
That was not a good one, in my opinion.
Okay.
Wordplay usually needs to be kind of clever. Just wedging a bad president's name in the middle name is not up to par, I'd say.
Did you like that message from the president?
I like the message, the Hoover reference. Okay. The average American isn't going to know who he is, but I like the attempt. He's trying. Right. He's out on the trail. Good job.
Okay. A for effort.
Yeah. He forgot.
I thought you were asking John to critique me, Blake.
You thought what?
Blake, I thought you were asking John to critique me, not the president. Go ahead. I feel bad he said it was a bad line.
I thought he was making fun of me. For you, Mick.
No. We would never make fun of you, Mick. By the way, the big financial headline today, Mick, speaking of the president and out there on the economy wasn't him. It was the Fed Chairman Jay Powell indicating that the central bank might not be cutting interest rates at its meeting later this month. That we knew. Let's play the soundbite from Jay Powell real quick.
The recent data have clearly not given us greater confidence and instead indicate that it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence. That said, we think policy...
Michael Starr Hopkins just said while that soundbite was playing, this is the election. And that's why we played that soundbite. And I'm not saying it is or isn't, but Jay Powell is basically warning that there might not be rate cuts anytime soon, Mick. And if that's the case, is Michael Starr Hopkins right that that's the election?
I think, well, it's the economy, stupid, right? I mean, how many times have we talked about this? Immigration is sort of giving the economy a run for its money on the most important issue, but at the end of the day, it's safe to assume the economy is going to be the driving issue. And you have to do it. The economy has to start getting better really quickly. It has to start turning in June or July or August. It's not the type of thing that if they get good numbers in October, they get a good election result in November. Here's the issue for Jay Powell, however, and I'm deadly serious. It's a serious matter, so let's be serious about it for a second. He's going to have to come before Congress sometime soon. Fed chair comes a couple times a year, and he's going to be asked by members of Congress, okay, you said the current data shows that inflation is not coming down. What was the data you were looking at 5 months ago when you telegraphed 5 cuts? Can you please share with us that data? He's going to have a really, really difficult time for the next several months going before the House and the Senate to explain how he set these expectations for these rate cuts and why they weren't political. That's going to be a really tough thing for him to do.
Hot mic with Mick Mulvaney. Thank you, sir. To Mick's point, if he does get asked that question, is it going to come off as political?
You know, he doesn't come across as a generally political person. He's
he
like
says
a nerdy
there's no
guy
politics involved.
Yeah,
but we've gone
course.
from, a handful of rate cuts, which in theory is great for the economy, to now might we get none before the election.
This has been an issue throughout the entire Biden administration. Everyone in Washington and the way that we talk about economics in our nerdy policy world versus the reality. He's talking about clearly this has been clear to all of us who live in really America. Like, I don't live in the Beltway. I live in California. And so because there's real people struggling with real issues that don't talk the way that these people do. And the reality is all of us have been suffering under Bidenomics, and that's been clear. Okay. So maybe just clear for him now.
Wages going up, unemployment going down, 15 million jobs.
Just about any metric you can look at is very good right now.
Yeah. That's faster. Housing market is tanking because of interest rate differentials.
Inflation is
that is a big problem.
The two Democrats here are saying, let's run on the economy. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's also a political problem, but it's also a political problem, frankly, to promise or indicate that there will be rate cuts and then not do it.
Right.
So, if I were Joe Biden, I wouldn't be happy.
Mulvaney is spot on here because when he gets called in front of Congress, they're going to say, how did we go from that to this?
Yeah, and that's going to point up the Biden economy failures, and that's it.
All right, meantime, coming up here on the Hill, it is one of the most respected sources of information, but NPR is now the one making headlines. A journalist turned whistleblower, you could say, making claims of liberal bias. So what's going on at NPR? On the other side of the break, we are speaking with one reporter from NPR. You're watching The Hill. Stay with us.
NewsNation tonight. It's the mystery that has gripped America. What happened to Riley Strain? Now his full family is speaking out for the first time, and they're ready to reveal what they think really happened. Banfield, tonight at 10/9 Central.
Now, an audit requested by lawmakers says the governor's office potentially violated state laws. The audit claims her office paid for it, for the lectern before it was delivered, and cited mishandling of records regarding the purchase. The governor dismissed the report as a, quote, waste of, the report rather was dismissed as a, quote, waste of taxpayer resources and time. She also punched back with this video on X. Watch.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Flo.
That's her response to all this. What'd you hear there?
I mean, look, we talked about this off air. I think she would make a great VP choice for Trump. She learned at the feet of Donald Trump.
This is as Trump as it gets.
This is Trumpian. Like, I hate it and love it all at the same time.
What'd you hear there? Oh, Jeff's already.
Me?
Yeah, you're side-eyeing
I'm
us.
baffled. Does she not understand that people aren't mad at the podium? That video is a defense of the podium. They're mad at her spending $19,000 on the podium.
It's a really nice podium.
But it's not that nice.
But as I gathered, she has a counter argument to the $19,000. The whole charge is the whole charge is bogus.
Is he blaming Bob Menendez's wife?
No. Well. We can talk about that another time, but no, she could have smuggled that thing. Let me tell you, but no, Mrs. Menendez, come on, you've seen her. But no, she said Governor Sanders says that this is a BS charge and that there are explanations.
What'd you hear?
I mean, what I heard was a really bad remake of Jay-Z. I'm so sorry, Jay-Z. I think that was maybe like karaoke Jay-Z. But anyway, I looked up, I don't know what the going rate is for a podium, so I looked it up because, I wanted to be informed when I come on this panel. It's not that much more than, it's not that much less than what she paid. It was like $16,000. Like,
anyone watching right now, I will make you a podium for $10,000.
Yeah. Hey, Mick, you know Sarah. I know her fairly well. You know her a lot better than I do. When you saw that, what'd you think? You're smiling already. When you saw that, what'd you think? Yeah. And what about the, VP talk surrounding her?
You sent me the clip, and I was like, that's Sarah. This woman is serious. She really is. She is wickedly smart, and she's tough. Mm-hmm. And if she feels like, she's being mistreated, she's going to push back in a creative way. I loved it. I'm not sure she's on the list yet. I'm sure she's on the list someplace for VP. I don't know if she wants to do that right now. I think she wants to run for president in 2028. But she and the president are still very close. They get along very, very well. This is her personality. What you saw is what you get. Yeah. And I happen to think it's great.
The comms team, by the way, that is around Sarah is part of the White House comms team as well. They went with her to Arkansas. All right. Meantime, drama is unfolding at NPR, National Public Radio, as its senior business editor, Yuri Berliner, published an article titled, quote, "I've been at NPR for 25 years. Here's how we lost America's trust." Berliner explains how, in his view, NPR lost its way when it started telling listeners how to think. Here's what he told Chris Cuomo the other night.
When I started, there was a liberal orientation, but I think we were more guided by curiosity, open-mindedness. I think that's evolved over the years into a much narrower kind of niche thinking, a group think that's really clustered around a very selective, progressive views that don't allow enough air, enough spaciousness to consider all kinds of perspectives.
NPR's media correspondent David Folkenflik now reporting today on NPR's website that Berliner has been suspended for 5 days without pay. And David Folkenflik joins us live. David, nice to speak with you. Thanks for being with us here on the Hill. And I know you spoke to Yuri Berliner recently. Explain to us, why was he suspended?
Well, I want to be clear. I don't speak for NPR here, but they give me the independence to report on these matters. Uri shared with me documentation that showed that he had been rebuked and formally suspended for 5 days without pay for basically appearances in outside news organizations. It's part of our code of conduct for employees, something that all of us, have to adhere to inform and receive approval from bosses to appear or do work for other news outlets. And that's what was cited. In addition, they cited a breach of the ethics code for having shared proprietary demographic data about our audiences.
Yeah, and if you're in media, you know that's kind of a standard, right? If you're going to appear on another outlet or something like that, you got to get approval for it. But I just wonder, David, so if he had posted this on Facebook, right, would there have been an issue?
In terms of the rebuke, it might have been very well a different question because he wouldn't be doing that for another outlet. In terms of, some of the concerns raised by his and our colleagues internally, perhaps not. But obviously, it gains much more purchase being in another news outlet of note, and also the nature of the news outlet. Bari Weiss, former New York Times editorialist, founded the Free Press, but it's also become a haven for journalists who believe that much of the mainstream media has become too liberal in its outlook.
I got to run. I'm up against a hard break here, but you spoke to him recently. What did he tell you? Was he frustrated at all?
He said he was actually at peace. He's hoping to, he says, engender a conversation and a debate and introspection inside NPR. He has, I think, to some extent done that. He has also engendered a lot of dismay and discouragement from colleagues who feel that he has unfairly represented their journalism, unfairly represented their judgment, and unfairly represented why they were hired at the network itself.
David Folkenflik, I got to leave it there, but thank you very much for coming on and speaking with us. David Folkenflik of NPR. Appreciate the time, sir. I believe we have live pictures right now, do we not, of Donald Trump. So this is a first. Trump, after his court appearance, made an appearance at a bodega, I believe, in New York. Listen in for a second.
Illegal migrants in New York. The people of
You can hear Donald Trump talking there. We'll see how much more we see of this as the trial goes on for Donald Trump. You're watching The Hill here on News Nation. We are back in a few. Leland Vitter joins us on the other side of the break. All right, before we say goodbye, here's a story that caught our eye. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas on Monday calling out protesters who blocked traffic in major cities across the country over the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Cotton took to social media writing, quote, "I encourage people who get stuck behind the pro-Hamas mobs blocking traffic, take matters into your own hands to get them out of the way." Host of On Balance, Leland Vitter, joins me now. Do you want to talk about this or Trump?
Well, I was going to mention, wasn't this the same time Cotton who had a New York Times op-ed back in 2020? Remember that?
That got...
It's just minor kerfuffles about it. Yeah, then he wanted the National Guard out. Now he wants people to take it into matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
I don't know when taking matters into your own hands like that is a good idea.
No.
You know,
there's police.
Arguing with pro-terrorist folks is not really my thing, but hey. There you go.
You said to me right before we came on air, you want to talk about Trump. We saw him at that bodega after the court appearance.